The 10th Armada of the Grivnari Empire slid into orbit around the blue and green marble below them, a sight Admiral Zultar had been told to expect would be unremarkable. He had studied the ancient records, a primitive planet, teeming with beasts, caves, and fire pits. A world beneath notice until resources became scarce enough to scrape even this galactic backwater. And yet, the planet staring up at him was not primitive. It shimmered with constellations of steel and glass, rings of satellites glittering in the void, and a storm of signals bouncing across the stars. His flagship's sensors picked up millions of transmissions, languages woven together in a cacophony, images, moving pictures, entire streams of what seemed like songs and jokes. None of it made sense. None of it was supposed to exist. "Admiral," said Commander Vurox, his scales tightening around his jaws in confusion. "We are receiving visual feeds from the surface. They appear to be deliberately aimed at us." He turned, his large black eyes blinking nervously. "I believe the natives are aware of our presence." "They should not even possess telescopes," Zultar muttered. He waved a claw dismissively. "Patch one through." The bridge's main holoscreen flickered alive. The crew collectively froze. A strange pink-skinned creature, hair like golden straw, stared directly at them. He wore a garish red bandana, his arms bulging like the swollen limbs of some mutant predator. The alien raised one finger to the sky and bellowed, "What ya gonna do, brother, when Earth runs wild on you?" The bridge descended into silence. Someone dropped a data slate. Vurox's scales paled. "Is this their warlord?" Zultar was silent for a long moment. Then, with the gravity of a man who had survived 6 campaigns, he answered, "If it is, he has chosen to announce war in a most unusual fashion." Before anyone could process further, the feed changed. More strange humans appeared, flickering on their holoscreen, all apparently performing elaborate rituals. A yellow-skinned family devoured food, while laughing in exaggerated tones. A man in a suit screamed about prices being slashed. Another human struck a guitar and shouted "Thunderstruck," while sparks rained behind him. Each new feed was stranger than the last. None resembled battle plans, yet all carried the aura of unhinged confidence. They are mocking us," whispered Vurox. "Or they are insane." On Earth, the source of this chaos was not a coordinated military strategy, but a handful of very caffeinated engineers at NASA, a hacker collective on Reddit, and several Pentagon analysts who thought it would be hilarious to hijack the incoming alien frequencies. They had debated whether to send a sternly worded message or a simple test signal. Then one had said, "What if we just beam them Hulk Hogan clips? See if they flinch." The idea had stuck. In Houston, General Keating rubbed his temples as reports poured in. "So let me get this straight. The first contact humanity makes with a galactic armada is pro wrestling reruns." "Yes, sir," said the technician. "Also some Simpsons episodes. And a music video playlist." Keating exhaled through his nose, eyes narrowing. "Good. Keep it that way. Let's confuse the hell out of them." Back on the flagship, Admiral Zultar summoned his council. They issue no formal challenge. No demands. Only threats disguised as ritualistic performance. He paced the length of the command deck, his armor clinking faintly. The archives spoke of humans as fractured tribes, not a unified species capable of directing messages into orbit. Explain this discrepancy. Scholar Tven cleared his throat, uneasy. "Our records date back 30 millennia, Admiral. Perhaps we underestimated their development curve." "You don't say," Zultar snapped. He jabbed a claw toward the screen, where humans were now dancing in brightly colored spandex. "Do you call this development?" The Admiral's skepticism was interrupted by an alarm. "Admiral, one of our scouts reports a catastrophic failure. Its hull has been punctured. The vessel is lost." "Lost?" Zultar's mandibles clacked. "How?" The answer came moments later, when surveillance feeds replayed the incident. A massive projectile, nothing more than a chunk of steel accelerated at impossible velocity, had slammed through the scout's armor and ripped it apart. The weapon was crude, but devastatingly effective, and its launch signature traced back to Earth's orbit. The silence in the command chamber was heavy. Zultar's eyes narrowed as he studied the frozen image of the projectile. To his trained gaze, it looked nothing like a conventional military asset. It was improvised, assembled from parts not meant for warfare. He leaned closer, reading the crude markings on the projectile's side, caught in one blurred frame before impact. Letters in English, hastily spray-painted, built not bought. On the ground, in a secret hangar in Florida, the team responsible for the makeshift orbital railgun erupted in cheers. The contraption had been built using scavenged rocket parts, a disassembled launch platform, and what one mechanic swore was a healthy dose of duct tape and sheer spite. They had argued about whether it would hold together. When it fired, it had shaken the ground for 50 miles. Now it had proven Earth could swat down alien ships. General Keating watched the footage, his jaw tightening. "Send the message," he ordered. "Make it clear. They think we're clowns? Fine, but they'll learn." Within minutes, every screen aboard the 10th Armada lit up with humanity's first official communique. The voice was steady, calm, and broadcast in every tongue, carried on 1,000 signals at once. "We are the people of Earth. You came uninvited. This is our only warning. Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be civilized." The words rolled through the Armada like thunder. The crew shifted nervously. Commander Vurox whispered, "Do they mean to imply they have not yet begun fighting seriously?" Zultar didn't answer immediately. His eyes lingered on the glowing sphere below, a world far stranger than he had been told. A world that laughed in the face of annihilation and sent its jokes as its first weapon. He felt unease stir in his chest, the kind that no data file could explain away. For the first time, he wondered if the 10th Armada had gravely miscalculated. And far below, on the planet's surface, humanity waited, grinning like a poker player holding a card no one else suspected. In the days that followed Earth's warning, chaos and unity coexisted in a way only humanity could manage. Governments that had spent decades squabbling over trade deals and sanctions now crowded into the same war rooms, their leaders hunched over digital maps like poker players bluffing with the galaxy's future. The United Nations building in New York became something it had never been before, a true command center. The blue flag still hung over the chamber, but beneath it were makeshift screens patched together from NATO's surplus equipment, borrowed servers, and a suspiciously large shipment of fiber optics courtesy of a few suspiciously helpful teenagers in Seoul. President Michael Grant of the United States rubbed his eyes as the latest report came in. He was tall, gray at the temples, and had the permanent air of a man who had once hoped to retire quietly but had been shoved back into the ring. His British counterpart, Prime Minister Edith Clark, was half his size and twice as sharp, slicing through military proposals like a surgeon. Then there was General Keating, America's grizzled warrior, who had already adopted the role of growling sentinel at every briefing. The moment of unity was, of course, imperfectly human. Arguments broke out about everything from launch rights to pizza toppings for late-night strategy sessions. A French delegate demanded that any orbital defenses be aligned with international law. The Russians insisted they had been preparing for this very scenario since the 1980s and should therefore lead the fight. The Chinese quietly set up their own command center in parallel. Through it all, the aliens' presence above Earth loomed, a dark reminder that debates over procedure were luxuries borrowed against time. On the other side of orbit, Admiral Zultar seethed in his command chair. The humans' audacity burned in his mind. They had destroyed a scout vessel with a weapon that by all accounts should not have worked, then delivered an ultimatum as if they were the ones holding the advantage. His officers whispered behind his back now, uncertain of their enemy. He had to reassert dominance, and quickly. "They are primitives playing with scraps," Zultar said in a voice that echoed through the chamber. "We will remind them of their place. Assemble a fleet demonstration. We will show them the size of the Armada." It was a common tactic. Intimidation through spectacle. Dozens of Grivnari warships pulled into a grand formation visible from Earth's surface, their weapons arrays gleaming like stars, their hulls polished black as obsidian. The broadcast was transmitted across Earth satellites, translated into every known language. It was meant to instill dread. Instead, the humans responded with projection. Literally. Within an hour, NASA technicians and hackers worldwide hijacked the alien feed. When the Armada expected to see fear in their enemies' eyes, what appeared instead was Tom Cruise, grinning in aviator sunglasses, flying across the aliens' mothership hull to the roar of Kenny Loggins. Top Gun played larger than life, each dogfight sequence flashing across the fleet. Pilots from Tokyo to Berlin immediately adopted call signs, Maverick, Iceman, Goose, buzzing their commanders with mock salutes. What was meant as intimidation had become a global meme. Zultar nearly crushed his datapad in his claws. His fleet's formation rippled with unease. "What is this sorcery?" he demanded. Scholar Tvan, ever cautious, hesitated before answering. It appears to be cultural propaganda. Their pilots display ritual dominance by flying craft dangerously, accompanied by music. Music? Vurox asked, horrified. Is it a form of psychological warfare? Zultar stared at the screen as jets danced through fireballs, humans whooping with glee. He wasn't sure which possibility unsettled him more, that it was a ritual or that it was just casual entertainment. Down on Earth, however, laughter faded quickly. The Armada's next move was not symbolic. From orbit, plasma strikes lanced into the oceans. Massive columns of water boiled upward, frying marine life in an instant. The Armada didn't dare target cities yet, perhaps fearful of provoking the true depths of human retaliation, but they intended to make their point. Earth was vulnerable. General Keating slammed his fist on the table. They've crossed the line. This isn't intimidation, it's assault. His gravelly voice carried across the chamber. Permission to respond decisively. President Grant looked grim. Clark leaned forward. Decisively, yes, but not suicidally. Remember what our ultimatum said. We stop pretending to be civilized. The world is watching. Let's show them what uncivilized looks like when it's turned into strategy. The first wave of retaliation was a symphony of improvisation. American engineers strapped nuclear warheads onto old ICBM chassis, disguising them as commercial launches until the last moment. Drone swarms cobbled together from consumer tech buzz like angry hornets, guided by open-source AI code patched overnight by university students. Farmers in Kansas bolted surface-to-air launchers onto their tractors. A team in Mumbai weaponized microwave towers, redirecting power grids to fry the alien sensors. The Grivnari had spent centuries perfecting doctrine. Their fleets moved with elegance, their commands followed strict chains of logic. Against such order, humanity unleashed raw chaos. One alien cruiser was crippled not by a missile, but by a Tesla Roadster launched into its engines, autopilot locked, battery overloaded with explosives. Another ship spun out of control when its targeting systems were drowned in an endless loop of SpongeBob memes, somehow encoded into its command software. For every plasma blast that scorched the sea, a dozen human improvisations struck back. The battle wasn't clean, and it wasn't predictable, but it was working. On the flagship, Admiral Zultar stared in disbelief at the tactical readouts. One of his captains dared to speak aloud what everyone thought. Admiral, they are improvising faster than we can adapt. Their strategies shift every hour. It is as if they thrive in disorder. Zultar's mandibles twitched. No species thrives in disorder. It is unsustainable. Yet his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. Back in New York, news of the first successful counterstrikes swept the war room. Leaders who had moments ago argued over procedure now sat in stunned silence, realizing Earth had actually bloodied the Armada. General Keating, for the first time in weeks, smiled. We can hurt them. That's all that matters. President Grant's expression was harder. He looked at the feeds of burning oceans, of coastal cities bracing for impact. Hurting them isn't enough. We have to break their will. They think we're bluffing. Let's show them we're not. The decision carried the weight of centuries. Humanity had drawn a line in the stars, and the 10th Armada had stepped across it. What came next would test not just weapons, but the very soul of the species. And though none in the chamber would admit it aloud, they all felt the same unsettling truth. Earth was only beginning to reveal what uncivilized truly meant. The stage was set for escalation, and neither side could turn back without losing everything. The Armada's plasma strikes scarred the oceans, leaving great clouds of steam visible from orbit, but Earth did not respond with surrender. Instead, the ultimatum that had once sounded like bravado now echoed with darker weight. In the hidden corners of the planet, doors that had not been opened in decades creaked wide. Nuclear submarines long thought decommissioned rose like sea serpents from the depths. Desert hangars unveiled projects marked black budget and denied by every administration that had ever existed. Humanity's message was no longer masked by jokes and television reruns. The gloves were coming off. President Grant stood in the war room, surrounded by a wall of screens. Each showed the same images, subs breaching the surface, orbital railgun silos extending like spears, stealth bombers lifting off from icy runways. He had never looked older, but his voice carried steel. They wanted to see what Earth looks like uncivilized. Let's give them the tour. Clark, ever quick with her tongue, leaned toward him. Uncivilized doesn't mean reckless, Michael, but it does mean ruthless. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the tactical feed. And no species in the galaxy has a longer history of ruthlessness than ours. General Keating barked orders, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. He lived for this, though even he admitted to himself that the stakes were terrifying. He knew Earth was good at war, history made that clear, but this was different. This was proving to an interstellar empire that humanity was more than a rock-throwing primitive. It was showing teeth sharp enough to tear apart a fleet. On the Grivnari flagship, the situation spiraled into a nightmare of disbelief. Scholar Tvan compiled human history from their intercepted archives, his voice shaking as he presented the findings. Admiral, they have fought wars that consumed their entire world twice. They have created weapons capable of extinguishing their species entirely. And yet they survived, rebuilt, and then flirted with destruction again. Their entertainment is filled with simulations of war and chaos. Is as though they enjoy it. Vurox hissed. That cannot be. No species enjoys chaos. But the evidence mounted. The aliens studied clips of professional wrestling, convinced at first it was live footage of ritual combat. When one video showed a figure called The Undertaker rising from a coffin mid-battle, half the analysis team resigned, swearing Earth's champions were immortal warlords. Another report broke down the significance of heavy metal anthems like Thunderstruck and Enter Sandman, concluding that humans used sound-based psychic warfare to intimidate enemies. Zultar himself stared at the reports, his mandibles grinding. Every hour seemed to uncover a new facet of Earth's madness. The humans were clever enough to disguise destruction as entertainment, ruthless enough to build world-ending weapons, and insane enough to laugh while doing it. Back on Earth, the Coalition prepared a demonstration that would make good on the ultimatum's threat. The Pentagon ordered a kinetic bombardment test, rods of tungsten dropped from orbit, accelerated by gravity alone, designed decades earlier and shelved as too catastrophic. Now one of those rods fell through the clouds, a silent silver dart. It struck a Grivnari cruiser with the fury of a meteor, splitting it into molten fragments. To the aliens, the explosion was not just terrifying, it was humiliating. Their proud fleet had been undone by a weapon the humans had never even bothered to use before. The retaliatory message was blunt. A broadcast cut through the Armada's comms, hacking every channel. World leaders appeared together on screen, their faces grim and defiant. Grant spoke first, his tone stripped of humor. You thought our ultimatum was theater. It wasn't. You thought our restraint was weakness. It isn't. You thought our civility was permanent. It won't be. Then Clark leaned forward, her voice sharp as a blade. You came here to conquer primitives. Instead, you found predators. The difference? Predators give warnings. Prey do not. The broadcast ended not with threats, but with a song. Across every alien vessel, the unmistakable riff of AC/DC's Thunderstruck roared. Entire crews froze as lightning graphics pulsed across their monitors, synced perfectly to the music. To humans, it was an anthem of adrenaline. To the Grivnari, it sounded like an incantation, a ritual chant echoing with storm. The effect was immediate. Morale fractured. Crews whispered that the humans had summoned lightning itself to destroy the cruiser. Some demanded retreat, others begged for reinforcements, and more still feared speaking at all lest the humans hear their words and strike again. Admiral Zultar's claws dug furrows into the armrest of his chair. He was a veteran of 9 campaigns, and never before had his fleet wavered like this. Compose yourselves, he snarled. They are savages with toys. Nothing more. Yet even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. On Earth, the effect of the demonstration rippled differently. Humanity felt, for the first time in millennia, like one species. Streets in Paris, Cairo, Beijing, and Buenos Aires erupted with chants. Children drew crude pictures of alien ships exploding. Teenagers uploaded videos reenacting Thunderstruck in their garages. Soldiers who had never met spoke the same language through music, memes, and the shared knowledge that the unthinkable had happened. Humanity had bloodied an interstellar empire. But with triumph came unease. President Grant knew the fight was far from finished. They won't back down after one strike, he told his council. We've proven we're dangerous. That doesn't mean we've proven we're untouchable. Clark crossed her arms, her sharp gaze fixed on him. Then we keep pressing until they're too afraid to test us again. If that means shedding the last mask of civility, so be it. Keating's voice was iron. Sir, they came here believing Earth was prey. We can't just make them retreat. We have to make them terrified of ever returning. Grant said nothing, but in his silence was agreement. For better or worse, Earth's ultimatum was evolving into a promise. The 10th Armada would not leave orbit intact. Above them, in the cold of space, the Armada trembled at the sound of human thunder. The galaxy's most disciplined fleet had discovered a truth its ancestors had overlooked 30,000 years ago. Earth was not merely unpredictable. Earth was not merely dangerous. Earth was uncivilized, and for the first time, it had stopped pretending otherwise. The storm was only beginning. The Armada hung over Earth like a storm cloud refusing to break, battered but not yet destroyed. Admiral Zultar paced his command deck with a stiffness that betrayed more fear than authority. He had fought pirates, rival empires, and insurrections across the galaxy, but never had he faced an enemy that fought like this, reckless, resourceful, and maddeningly unpredictable. Every time his officers believed they understood human tactics, the Earthlings rewrote the rules. Every time his strategists found patterns, chaos shattered them. It was not war as the Grivnari knew it. It was survival turned into art. On Earth, President Grant stared into the monitors, his face lit by the glow of incoming battle reports. Each feed told the same story. Humanity had turned every field, city, and ocean into a battlefield. Farmers launched guided rockets from cornfields. Teenagers piloted drone swarms patched together with duct tape and stolen code. Entire coastal communities had volunteered their fishing fleets as decoys to draw fire. It was no longer just governments directing the war. It was humanity itself, answering the Armada's challenge with unrelenting defiance. "Mr. President," General Keating growled, his gravel voice cutting through the noise of the command center, "the people are ahead of us. They're not waiting for orders. They're improvising faster than we can strategize." Grant nodded slowly. He was weary, but a flicker of pride glimmered in his eyes. "That's the difference, isn't it? They came here expecting one army. What they found was 8 billion. Every man, woman, and child with something to fight for." He turned to Clark, who leaned on the table with a hawk's sharp gaze. "The question is, how far do we let them go?" Clark's answer was immediate. "As far as it takes. You said it yourself, our ultimatum wasn't theater. If they don't leave, we'll show them why Earth survived itself for millennia." Above, the Armada reeled under coordinated assaults unlike anything their battle doctrines had imagined. Stealth bombers cloaked in radar shadows swooped between plasma fire. Orbital railguns punched holes through frigates like pins through paper. A swarm of hacked satellites blinded the Armada sensors, replacing star maps with looping images of cats knocking objects off tables. The Grivnari fleet was vast, but its discipline became a weakness. Ships waited for orders that never came, while humans simply acted, adapted, and struck without hesitation. Zultar gathered his war council, but what should have been strategy turned into argument. Captains shouted over one another. Some demanded retreat, others demanded total bombardment. A few muttered the word cursed, as though humanity itself were a plague. One officer slammed his fist against the table, eyes wild. "They are demons. They summon storms with their music. They rise from coffins. They strike with weapons we cannot predict." "Enough!" Zultar roared, though his voice trembled. He looked into the hologram of Earth below, its continents glimmering with fire and defiance. "They are not demons. They are animals pretending to be gods." Yet as he spoke, he knew the words rang hollow. The animals were winning. The breaking point came in orbit. A fleet of Grivnari destroyers, ordered to crush Earth's orbital stations, found themselves swarmed by what appeared at first to be debris. The debris split open into 1,000 scavenged drones, each carrying explosives scavenged from stockpiles the aliens hadn't even detected. The drones struck like hornets, overwhelming shields through sheer numbers. When the flagship systems finally cleared the interference, the tactical display showed what no Grivnari had ever seen. The 10th Armada's formation broken, its proud symmetry shattered into chaos. In New York, cheers erupted through the war room as reports poured in. General Keating's weathered face cracked into something rare, a smile. Clark, ever sharp, was already pushing forward. "They're faltering. This is the moment. Press every advantage. End this before they regroup." Grant hesitated, his shoulders heavy with the weight of the decision. "If we go too far, we risk escalation beyond Earth. What if more fleets come?" Clark met his gaze. "Then we make this one such a massacre that the galaxy thinks twice before sending another." Earth's final stroke was not elegant. It was not the clean precision of alien fleets. It was desperation sharpened into ingenuity. The International Space Station, stripped of its civilian modules, had been refitted overnight by a coalition of engineers, mechanics, and soldiers. From its airlocks, they launched the unlikeliest of weapons, hundreds of modified Roombas, each packed with explosives, thrusters strapped crudely to their sides. A joke born on the internet had become a weapon of war. The swarm of machines descended on the Armada's flagship in a cloud of blinking lights and cheerful beeps. Alien gunners hesitated, unwilling to waste plasma charges on what looked like toys. By the time they realized the danger, it was too late. The Roombas clamped onto the hull, their payloads detonating in synchronized chain. The flagship convulsed under the assault, lights flickering, shields collapsing. On the bridge, Admiral Zultar clung to his chair as alarms screamed. His officers shouted in panic. The flagship's heart cracked open, fire spilling into the void. With one last guttural roar, Zultar pounded his fist into the console. Cursed animals, then the ship split in two, consumed by fire. From Earth's surface, telescopes and cameras caught the explosion. The image spread across the globe in seconds. Crowds filled the streets in every city, cheering, crying, embracing. The 10th Armada, invincible on paper, had been broken by the very species it sought to conquer. President Grant let out a slow breath. "It's done." Clark corrected him softly, her voice carrying both triumph and warning. "No, it's begun. The galaxy knows we're not prey anymore." Keating's eyes darkened. "And that means the next war will come. Bigger, harder. But now they'll know to fear us." The war room fell into a silence heavier than any victory song. Outside, the world celebrated, but inside its leaders understood the truth. Earth's ultimatum had been more than a bluff. It had been a revelation. Humanity had shown its teeth, and the galaxy would never forget the sight. In the quiet after the storm, as the last fragments of the Armada drifted like ash across the stars, Earth's message repeated one final time on every alien frequency. You wanted war. We wanted peace. Now you know the cost. Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be civilized. The words lingered in the void, a warning and a promise, and across the galaxy, unseen eyes watched Earth with newfound fear. Humanity had stepped onto the stage of the cosmos, not as victims, not as conquerors, but as something far more dangerous, players who had finally stopped hiding their true nature. And the game had only just begun.